Hi everyone, let's have a discussion about the importance of plannerprotect.ca. With me I have the CEO herself, Heather Reid, and I love the fact that you've created this for businesses, business owners, and let's face it, people that are planning events, right? How did this first off come to be?
Good question. It's been a 23-year evolution. I've been an independent meeting planner, so I've been self-employed with clients, particularly in the not-for-profit and association sector. And I realized that my particular love of contracts, the contracts that are signed when you host an event in a venue, quite often you'll get, a 16, 26-page contract. And I love dissecting those contracts and really looking for how my client is impacted by what's in the contract. And I discovered probably about 5 years ago that the depth at which I look at a contract is not as I look more intensely, I think, than some. And I actually had someone say, I'd rather have a root canal than look at a contract. And I went, wow, because that's the part I love. And so I realized that the part that I loved is a part that a lot of people don't enjoy at all. And so I've created a service that I can use my expertise about contracts to help other people that don't enjoy that process, and yet it's so critical. To me, it sets the stage for a successful event, and it can defend something that goes sideways in an event after the fact. And so I really wanted to bring that expertise that I've gathered into and help other business owners, associations, not-for-profits when they are creating their live events. So that's how it started, was just my quirky kind of interest.
But I love it because to me, you're like, this day and age's Nancy Drew, or like the super sleuth that goes in and dives in deep and like gets right into the root of it. So yeah, not the root canal, but but the fact that you can read between the lines and find the missing points that people just glazed over, that, as you said, could make the difference from a successful event to a complete disaster in
Absolutely.
some occasions.
Yeah.
So what is the advantage of a corporation or an individual working with Planner Protect?
I think it comes down to four really main things: peace of mind, containing the costs, reducing the risks, and really thorough logistics. So let me explain those to you. So peace of mind. Over my tenure and looking at contracts, I've created 52-point checklist.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And some of them are, there are different names for, say, force majeure. There's another name called impossibility. So I have all of those keywords. They're all part of my 52-point checklist because every contract is different. No two contracts are alike. And so what references in one contract may be called something entirely different in another one. And so I use my 52-point checklist every single time to look at a contract to make sure I'm not trusting my mind to really making sure that everything that needs to be in that contract is in there. So peace of mind that contract has really been vetted very carefully and thoroughly. So that's one aspect. Containing costs is another really important piece for people with bottom lines. So they have to deliver on reduced costs and maximizing their profits. So as a planner, I was responsible for a client's bottom line on their event and got used to, where do I look for the hidden costs? Where do I look for costs that may not be really in your face, but you're going to encounter down the road? And so I've helped clients really discover those costs, get them into the contract where they can lock in those costs, negotiate them up front so that they aren't hidden and they aren't unanticipated at the time of the event. So really containing costs is a big factor for a lot of groups. And then the reduced risks. So in a contract, you can appreciate the venue has invested in legal counsel to create a very solid, robust contract that protects their best interests. And you require legal counsel and someone like myself to really protect the client's best interest, the event host's best interest. And so to do that, you need to know what to ask for, and you need to know what risks am I being asked to assume, and what risks can I push back on to the venue. And so things like the opportunity to be sued. There's language always that relieves the venue of lawsuits and things like that, and that you'll pay. And so it's talking about how do we get that to be balanced. Things like privacy. There are contracts for a hotel, for an example. A lot of contracts say that the event host has the right to share data about a guest, and that you've given that permission to the property. Well, in fact, that's not the case, and you know what privacy rules are like now. So it's looking for those little nitty-gritty things where a client is exposed to risk, and unless they really dig deep, you don't find those things, and yet they can come back to bite you afterwards. So it's looking for that. And then the fourth and final one, I think, is just the real laser focus on the logistics. So I look at, and this is where legal counsel, that you absolutely need to involve legal counsel to review a contract and make sure it's solid. But as a planner, I think about the flow of the event. So I look at space, and I look at timelines, and I look at setups, and all the little things that really help create the very best event. Because quite honestly, it may be you that's looking and thinking about the event, but it may be someone else that is actually executing the event. And you want to make sure that what you dreamt about the event and is on paper actually gets translated to. And so you want to make sure everything's really documented well. And I look at all those angles. So those four things are really what someone has to gain by having an expert person help them with that contract.
You are such an abundance of knowledge. I could literally say, she makes it infectious. People getting excited about contracts.
A contract.
No, but it's serious because I'm just like, I never thought of that, and I never thought of that. But that's why Planner Protect is here, because these are things that not necessarily people are passionate about. But certainly you bring out the passion, you bring out your expertise, you bring out your values in everything that you do. And I can attest, it exudes in Planner Protect. You have helped so many businesses, so many companies, so many organizations with conferences, with locations. And I'm going to assume you've done this so many times that you probably have I'm going to say you have such a good grasp of certain hotels, what they will say, certain locations and venues,
Absolutely.
because you've seen the contract probably more than once
Yes.
for a different event.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So that's another, to me, an asset is that you've seen this, you speak the language. To me, it's like if you went to a foreign country and you didn't know how to speak that language and you were with an interpreter. You are an interpreter
That's
of
a fabulous analogy.
I think you are an
Absolutely.
interpreter of a contract and what's on it. And the beauty here too is that you don't only interpret this for people, you teach as well.
I do.
Right? So
I
can you
do.
tell me a little bit about it? Because you offer so many great assets on your website. People can take workshops, or how does that work?
So I really target, my heart is with my own industry, which is the event planning professional. And so I do offer webinars and courses in speaking that teaches other event planners to be able to become a forensic contract analyzer.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
I like it, yeah.
Because truly that's where I want to enhance our profession and really move forward someone else's skills. So I see that as a bit of a legacy piece, is really helping other planners help their clients. So it's kind of that ripple effect. But then I also work one-on-one with clients that maybe don't hire professional help or have an in-house team that helps them as well. So really it started out as really a heart for planners, but realizing that there's that extra step that people that don't involve a planner, that I can help them as well. So yeah, there are many facets of the business as far as, and now just looking at who else can I help? And because it is so important, and I think our Canadian culture doesn't help us in that we're not a litigious culture yet. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say yet, because the more I'm in this space, the more examples I hear of groups that are held accountable for the contracts that they've signed. In the American system, there's lots of case precedent with lawsuits that are filed. Here we don't have that, but we have a lot of things that are kept secret because we're ashamed about the mistakes that are made. And they're not really maybe mistakes, but we just didn't know. And how can you, if there's nowhere to go to learn, how can you be expected to know? Mm-hmm. And so Planner Protect is all about creating a safe space to learn, first of all, and then providing a service that you don't have to learn.
If you don't want to.
If you don't want to.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's like a chef. If you don't, you can learn how to make the food if you want to, or if you want, you can just eat the food. So here you'll teach them how to assess a contract and to dissect it, or you'll just do it for them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how much joy does it bring you when you have taught someone, like one of your students or colleagues comes back and says, "Oh my gosh, you saved me so big." Like,
I actually had that exact situation last
Really?
week. I was in St. John's, Newfoundland,
Yeah.
and at a conference, and the very first delegate I ran into came up, and I didn't know her by sight or by name, and she said, "I'm the one that emailed you. You have changed my approach to contracts."
Wow.
And I literally, I was beaming for hours after that, because I know that her practice long term has changed. It's improved. So every client that she comes into contact now will have a better contract because of that 3 hours that we spent together in an educational session. And that absolutely, you nailed it on the head. It thrills me to know that that's the kind of impact that Plan or Protect can have.
Well, I know you, and I know the fact that that's what you are all about, is you want to make a difference, you want to help people with this. And I can just see, it's almost like the Plan or Protect here, your logo would have wings and take off, it's like, oh, because like, this is serious business.
It
and
is.
You are in a very serious business here. So, I mean, I think I know the answer, but what are the disadvantages of someone going through the process of a corporation or organization going through this and not using someone like Plan or Protect, and just like going through and just kind of thinking they got it and they know the contract?
If nothing goes wrong, they're
Great,
okay.
yeah.
Right? And I think I'm accurate when I say it's not if something is going to happen, it's when something happens. And truly, you may do most of your events without something happening, but when it does, it can be catastrophic to an association or to a business. Because just a simple slip and fall, if one of your delegates were on a hotel property and a slip and fall, that can cost upwards of $80,000 to defend alone. That's not chump change, right? That's huge costs. And those sorts of protections can be built into a contract. So if they're not using one, I would say they run the risk of really, the logistics not going smoothly, really unanticipated costs that venues they're not being deceitful by any far stretch, but they're not putting everything in upfront and transparent. Yeah. And so if there's things that you haven't thought about or encountered before, they may come as a surprise and out of left field. So I think there's costs that could be a slip up for someone that hasn't, and really they're not doing this every day. So, they may only be doing it a couple of times a year, and things change all the time. There are new angles of revenue generating for properties that they may not even think about looking for that really will affect them. So I promote that my fee, and I am a new line item in a budget. I'm not commissioned based. I'm not paid by another source. I am a direct line in the budget. But my cost is a fraction of the negotiated savings. And so even if it's in the simplest of terms, I know that I can recover my cost for you to pay me to, in the negotiated savings, bringing costs to light, avoiding risk, that sort of thing. So,
and I know, Heather, you are a results-oriented person. And when I look at Plan or Protect, you have results.
Yes, we do.
You have so much credibility behind your name. Can you share just a couple of them?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Our overall tracking is that we have saved over $8 million in avoided risk and in actual savings. So what does that mean? Well, we've had over 200 clients to date. So on average, we're looking between $27,000 and $40,000 avoided risk savings. So in avoided risk, so one example I want to share with you is a group pre-Plan or Protect. So the contract that was given to them, if they had to cancel, and they did seriously look at canceling their event 6 months out, their damages owed to the property would have been $181,000 for the privilege of canceling their own event. They would have owed this property $181,000. And yet, when we were finished, when Plan or Protect came in and came alongside of them and helped them negotiate with all of our strategies, with our 52-point checklist, their cancellation terms was $38,000. So almost a $150,000 difference in knowing what to ask for, how to approach the negotiations, what's included in cancellation. So really it's, as you say, results based. And it may be actual dollars that are saved by locking in pricing, by locking in service charges, things like that. But a lot of it is in avoided risk. So if you had to cancel, there was a case of an association that had signed a contract unknowingly. They owed everything the value of the contract at any point of cancellation. So even if they canceled 18 months out, they owed, and in this case, it was $92,000 to the venue. Well, that venue, they would have owed that, but the venue could have turned around and sold that space. And so really creating a second revenue, you know, but that person didn't know when they negotiated the contract. And so, yes, they owed something, but they didn't owe the value of the contract. So that's really where those $8 million in avoided risk, it's not about what absolutely does happen every single time. It's about what if, and it's when that what if happens.
And that's a big what if. Like, let's face it, and I read this on your website, like canceling an event is crummy, but when you cancel an event, how did you put it? Well, overpaying to cancel is, what do you say, a career killer?
It is. It can be.
It could be that could cost someone their job.
Absolutely, and it has. There is case precedent in the States where planners and you know, team people have lost their jobs over lawsuits involving event cancellation and copyright infringement and all sorts of things that go into a contract. And if it's an association that is bettering our communities and they're losing hard-earned dollars because of a lack of awareness, that pains me. You know, to know that yes, it's business. It absolutely is business. It's, you know, business to business, event host to venue, but it doesn't have to be everything. Well, it's a portion.
And so. I love it. You know, Planner Protect, Heather and her team are here to help you, and it is always, you take such a serious subject matter, but you deliver it with such positivity and always with a smile and always with your best interest at heart. So I can not say enough great things about Planner Protect. I've seen colleagues of mine using your services and how it has saved them, even events that I've been a part of, and how just well executed it is. Because let's face it, this is where it starts, the pre-planning of it.
It does.
The Planner Protect. PlannerProtect.ca. Heather Reid and her team are the people that, I mean, you are the first call that I would be making. And what do you always say? You know, what you don't know
can hurt you. It will hurt you. Eventually, it'll catch up to you. It will hurt you. And even if it's in a small way, it's not necessary. So
Heather Reid, PlannerProtect.ca. That's all you got to do.